Hello and welcome into this week's edition of the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series Rewind Show right here on Racing News Now. As always, I'm your host, Garth Allen. Thank you once again for joining me today. If this is your first time catching a Racing News Now video, consider going down below and hitting that subscribe button and ringing the bell for notifications so you don't miss a thing going forward from RNN. On today's edition of the Cup Rewind, we're looking back at Sunday's 49th annual Gander Outdoors 404 laps, 404 miles, went just a skosh into overtime in this one. Around the 1 mile concrete oval Dover International Speedway in Dover, Delaware, better known as the Monster Mile. 5 caution flags in this race for 31 laps. It was very tame until very late in the race. It was last 100 laps before we had a caution for anything other than a stage break. The first stage concluded at lap 120. Stage 1 winner would be Kevin Harvick. He had a very strong car early on in this race. Stage 2 ended at lap 240. Harvick would also pick up the Stage 2 victory. So tally up a couple more playoff points to Harvick's already ridiculously high number of playoff points for this season. Lap 340 would be the first caution for a non-stage break. This one, though, for debris in turns 3 and 4. First caution for an incident on the day was at lap 393 as Clint Bowyer got into the wall in turn number 3. He was having some suspension issues. They initially thought it was a flat tire. They came down, thought they had fixed the problem, and apparently had not. So what had been a good day for Clint Bowyer, 4th in the first stage, 2nd in the second stage. He had a very fast car, turned south very quickly at the end of the race. Lap 398 shortly after the restart from the Clint Bowyer incident. This is what sent us into overtime. We had some differing pit strategies from that caution. Some guys stayed out. Some guys took 2 tires. Aric Almirola had looked like he was on the way to cruising to a victory before his teammate Bowyer had his issues. Almirola got shuffled back in the pack on this restart, trying to make something happen, getting around these guys that did not have fresh tires like he did, or that only had 2 fresh tires. Gets a little bit into the wall off of turn 2, comes down, tags the 2-car Brad Keselowski, and that causes a pileup headed into turn number 3 involving Keselowski, the 88 of Alex Bowman, of course the 10 of Almirola, the 78 Martin Truex Jr., and the 12 of Ryan Blaney. That set up a 5-minute red flag to get everything cleaned up, and then we went racing in overtime. Lead changes on the day, 15 among 8 drivers. Kevin Harvick led by far the most laps today, 286 of the 404 total laps in this race. 64 laps were led by Aric Almirola. Those all came late in the race as he looked like he was on his way to victory before that incident that set up overtime. 21 laps were led by Kyle Busch, 11 were led by Chase Elliott, 8 laps led by Brad Keselowski, 7 from Ricky Stenhouse, 2 laps went to Joey Logano, and 1 lap was led by Clint Bowyer. All right, let's get into your results for the day. Chase Elliott came away with his 2nd career Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series victory. That will advance him to the round of 8, and he does not have to worry about Talladega next week. I'm sure that is a sigh of relief for him. Denny Hamlin tried to track Elliott down late. Hamlin even had 2 fresh tires, whereas Chase hadn't taken any on that previous caution. Somehow, though, Chase was able to outrun Denny in those closing laps in overtime and pick up the victory. Joey Logano with a strong 3rd place finish, Erik Jones in 4th, and Kurt Busch rounded out the top 5. Rest of your top 10 were Kevin Harvick, Austin Dillon, Kyle Busch, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., and Daniel Suarez. 11th through 20th, a few playoff drivers on this page, mostly getting caught up in incidents. Ryan Blaney there in 11th, Kyle Larson 12th. Aric Almirola, we documented his problems. Such a heartbreak. Looked like he was about to get his first win for Stewart-Haas Racing. Was not to be. 13th on the day. Brad Keselowski in 14th. Martin Truex Jr. came home in the 15th position. 21st through 30th, we see Bubba Wallace down here in the 23rd position. Alex Bowman with a very disappointing run after that incident that he got caught up in. Not anywhere close to of his doing. But unfortunately, that puts him in quite the hole with 2 races remaining in this round to dig out of, and I don't know that I would want to be in a hole heading into Talladega. Last page, 31st through 39th. Clint Bowyer landed down here in the 35th position. Jimmie Johnson had problems from before they even waved the green flag. He had a major suspension issue under the pace laps at the beginning of the race. Had to come down and get that fixed before he could even start the race because the car wasn't going to go anywhere with those kind of problems. Didn't even get out on the track until lap 10 of the race. Then he had some pit road problems and all kinds of other things, and just it was not a good day for Jimmie Johnson at one of his better tracks. 36th on the day for Jimmie Johnson, 17 laps off the pace. That's your results from the Gander Outdoors 400 from Dover. Let's slide over to the Media Center. We'll see what your top finishers on the day had to say after this one.
Yeah, it really was just a crazy finish. You know, it seemed like a pretty controlled race for most of it. Everyone was clicking off a lot of laps. We were able to score some good stage points, a second and a fourth in the 2 stages. So I was proud of that. That helped us a lot in our situation for going into Talladega. And then you think about there at the end, you know, the caution comes out. You make a big call with 2 tires, gain the spot, and then, you know, the car staying out and getting to the end like that, you know it's going to be crazy. And obviously they crashed right in front of me. Had a good miss there. Near miss, but it was a good miss. And then, you know, as we had that last restart, I really thought Chase was a sitting duck. I didn't think he could win on those older tires, but I guess that red flag cooled him off enough to where he took off and got that clean air, and the 11 couldn't do anything with him, which was surprising. I was back there fighting the 20 trying to clear him. So, you know, proud of the points we scored today. It's a big deal, and wish we could have won, but overall I call it a successful day.
Yeah, we had a pretty uneventful race and just kind of kept our nose clean and, you know, did everything we needed to do to get a good finish. I thought that there towards, you know, really the last 100 laps we had, you know, probably anywhere from a 5th to 7th place car. And, you know, we took advantage there on that last stop to take 2 tires. That put us in the outside line, got a good restart, and then they wrecked behind us, and that put us on the front row. So, you know, really just a great execution day. You know, like I said, didn't make any mistakes, just chipped away at it. We worked our way in the top 10 by the end of stage 2, and then just got to like 8th and 7th and 6th and just kept getting a little bit better through the day. And other guys were starting to falter or their cars were fading, and we took advantage.
Yeah, everybody said, you know, he struggled for obviously a couple years to win a race, and they said, once you get one, they all come easier. And I was like, there's no way that's true at all. So certainly didn't come easy today, and just and so glad we could get a win. You know, last fall was such a tough race for me. You know, as I've said to a bunch of people, it was probably the toughest day of my career, and you know, just to be able to come back and kind of put those things behind you and prove that you belong is very gratifying, and I just thankful for the opportunity.
And we'll take a look at your playoff grid before wrapping up here tonight. We are now 4 races into the 2018 playoffs for the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. 2 races remaining now in the round of 12. Currently, after the first race of this round, Eric Almirola, Clint Bowyer, Kyle Larson, Alex Bowman all sitting below the cutoff line. Eric Almirola looked like he was on his way to winning his way into the next round, and instead sits 10 points behind Ryan Blaney. 10 points from advancing into the next round. Tied with Clint Bowyer there, his teammate, so not a good position for either one of these 2 Stewart-Haas cars. Kyle Larson also sitting below the cutoff line now, 12 points behind Ryan Blaney. And then Alex Bowman just 34 points behind Ryan Blaney. Alex Bowman has a huge hole to dig out of. Luckily for him, he has run well on plate tracks this season. But Talladega is such a wild card. I mean, even if you're somebody that's good on plate tracks, I wouldn't want to rely on Talladega to be my best way of getting into the next round. There's too much that can happen. It's just, I I'm scared for Alex Bowman right now. I think this race took him out of contention for the next round. I can see him winning at Talladega, but it's going to be very, very hard because it's such a wild card. You've got a 50-50 chance of even finishing the race. So we'll see what happens, but I'm scared for Alex Bowman right now. Almirola, Boyer, Larson, they're all fine. They can win, or they could still point their way back into the top 8. It's not that big of a stretch for any of them. Alex Bowman, it's a bit of a stretch. So we will see what happens in these next 2 races, Talladega and Kansas, and we will see what happens with these guys. But that's your playoff grid following the Gander Outdoors 400 at Dover, and that will do it tonight for us on the Cup Rewind show. We had multiple Rewind shows go up earlier today because we were at Lucas Oil Raceway last night with the ARCA Racing Series. Basically, all of our Saturday Rewind shows got pushed into today, and it has